Hey everyone, welcome to Entertainment is Broken. I'm Richard Crouse.
And I'm Sarah Hanlon, and today we're talking about my favorite topic. Whether you love it, whether you hate it, reality TV is here to stay, baby.
On January 22nd, Paramount Plus officially brought the Shore franchise to Canada, landing specifically in the wine-soaked valley of Kelowna, BC, with the premiere of Canada Shore. They've imported Jersey royalty Snooki to mentor a new generation of Canadians in the fine arts of whatever the hell it is they do on that show. We'll find out a little bit later because I'm sure that Sarah knows more about it than I do. So today, we're going to find out where reality television came from, why we like it, maybe why we don't, and if it's going to kill us.
Or save us.
So we start off the show almost every week with me saying, hey, it's great to see you. I haven't seen you for a week, but I actually saw you on Saturday.
Yes, I did. We did, and it was fantastic. You were hosting the screening of The Well, which was a really interesting, beautifully shot film. And what got to me, the performances were amazing. So thank you for inviting me to that.
Oh, you're welcome. Yeah, directed by Hubert Davis, who is an Academy Award-winning documentary filmmaker. This is his first narrative film. Couple of things about Hubert. Nicest man on the planet. One of the few people who's taller than me. So when we spoke, I actually had to look up. And I looked him up, and his father was a Harlem Globetrotter. So maybe that's where he got his height from.
Oh, that's so cool. And I love that he spoke about the inspiration for this film being staying in a remote cottage with his new young babies who were there at the screening. They were not babies anymore. The whole story is it made the film that much more powerful. It's a little apocalyptic.
It is. It's a dystopian story about water sources being poisoned, and there's one family that has a well with good, pure water in it, and then the filter breaks, and they have to set out on a journey to try and get the filter fixed, and some things happen. But it's a really cool, interesting movie that isn't a dystopian movie in the sense that Mad Max is a dystopian movie or those big apocalyptic films that have huge action set pieces. This is more about introspection. It's more about ideas. And it's a pretty cool film. Great performances all around. And it's playing in the theaters right now. So go check it out. Support Canadian film and support going to the theaters.
That's right.
And then later, if you went home and stayed up and watched Saturday Night Live, you would have seen Geese on Saturday Night Live. So Geese are a Brooklyn independent band who are getting a huge push these days. People seem to really like them or really hate them. I did not see it on Saturday night. I always tape Saturday Night Live and then sit there with my finger on the remote the next day. And when I got to the musical performances, I had already seen people say online, the only reaction I had seen was, that was the worst thing ever on Saturday Night Live. And I'm like, I find that hard to believe. And so I had to see for myself. And it was by far and away not the worst thing ever to be on Saturday Night Live. I think that people are afraid maybe of something that is new, that is disruptive, that sounds different to their ear. But just because you don't like it doesn't mean it's bad. Art is subjective.
Yeah, I liked it. I was shocked because I have my own little routine with Saturday Night Live. I must start it at 11:30 and I will get home to be there. Have you always watched it?
I have. So I don't know if I've talked about this before on this podcast, but I grew up above a furniture store. My dad owned a furniture store. And it was huge. We lived in a building that at one time was a vaudeville theater, then had become a sawmill, and then a store. And then there was a huge apartment on top where we lived, and my dad ran the store downstairs.
You were made for this life,
I was made for this. And so when my parents would go to bed on Saturday nights, and I would sneak down to the store, which literally you walked out of our kitchen door and you're down a flight of stairs, and you were in the store, in the showroom. And I would lay out on a couch, probably in the picture window in the store, and I'd turn on 10 televisions. They would have a display of televisions, and I would turn on 10 televisions and turn them all up really loud, especially when the bands were on, and watch Saturday Night Live there. And that was a very long time ago.
That is so iconic. Do you remember a couple like music performances or comedians that?
The Rolling Stones, absolutely. When they were there promoting Some Girls, that was a big one. The band Fear, which is a name that came up quite a bit when people were talking about Geese and saying, it's the worst performance since Fear. I thought Fear were amazing. They were John Belushi's favorite punk rock band, an LA punk rock band, I think. And he got them booked, and it just turned into chaos. And it was amazing. On live television, there was a mosh pit, people throwing themselves at the screen. Unreal. Unlike one of the greatest things I've ever seen on Saturday Night Live. And I remember like Andy Kaufman singing, "Here they come to save the day," and all that kind of stuff. I loved all that stuff. It just felt exotic and interesting, and it felt new and fresh. And years later, when I got to actually go to Saturday Night Live and be in that studio, I remember sitting, the audience is fairly small. There's only about 200 people there, and the studio itself is fairly small. It looks deceptively large on television, but it's very small. And I was sitting and thinking, I'm literally sitting a mere feet away from where John Belushi dressed up as one of the Killer Bees, and where David Bowie performed, and all the stuff that I'd loved about the show. Steve Martin and Gilda Radner doing that amazing dance through the studio. All that stuff came flooding back to me as I was sitting in Studio 8H, I think it is. And it was an amazing time, a very cool way to be there. And if you watch I think it's the 50th anniversary music documentary that they made, you'll see me in the audience. Adam Sandler is singing a song called Red Hooded Sweatshirt, bop, 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 and then it cuts to the audience, and it's a full-on close-up of me going, bop, 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 sweat, from many years ago.
My first CD that I ever bought and saved up money for myself and then went and got because it was like restricted beyond like under 14 years old or something like that was the Adam Sandler comedy song, which is just, I look back like, that's so funny that I needed it so bad. It was like a whole secret mission, but SNL is iconic for that in so many levels. And because if it was just the comedy thing, that would be one thing, but they have this musical element. So they really are like music tastemakers. So if they tell me Geese is good, I'm going to sit and I'm going to listen.
I'm not sure that they're breaking acts in the way that they used to, although a lot of people are talking about Geese since Saturday night, and who may not have been talking about them beforehand. But Cameron Winter's voice, I think, is an acquired taste for a lot of people. It's not exactly something that I immediately was drawn to, but when he was singing the song Trinidad and singing "There's a bomb in my car" over and over again, I was like, this is pushing some boundaries that I didn't know this band was going to push. And it felt different and raw, and it felt unpredictable. And it's not punk rock, but it felt kind of punk rock to me. And I just kind of liked seeing something that was being created by the people I saw on that stage and having it feel different and unusual and a little uncomfortable. And Geese, for me, that was all right.
Yeah, I like them. I'm here for them.
And they were not the failure, I don't think. And the segues that I'm using here.
They were not the failure. Not when Ashley Simpson had that moment. Yeah. How could you ever say that anything is a failure when you have a lip syncing fail?
Yeah. Well, but we mentioned failure because there is a museum of personal failure that has just opened up as a pop-up in Vancouver, British Columbia, and not a permanent thing. It'll only be there until February 3rd. But I thought it was a cool thing. So they put up posters around the city saying, "Failures wanted," and they invited people to submit physical artifacts from their failures, their various failures, and they're on display now. So there's a dead plant. Someone failed to keep the thing alive. There's failed art projects, broken keepsakes, all kinds of stuff. And I love this idea because I think, and it certainly has been true in my career, that I have learned more from my failures, and there have been a lot of them, than I have from the stuff that's gone right off the top. And I think that you need to, and it's such a cliche, but I think that you need to fall down 6 times to get up that 7th time with all that knowledge of what's gone wrong in the past, and then bring it forward to the thing you're working on now.
Yeah, exactly. When at my master's, because I did a research creation project, so it's also like you're creating a piece of art while you're doing it. And so they really had to push me, because when you're writing a paper, it's all about preparation.
Yeah.
But they were really like, you're gonna fail. And so you fail quick and fail often is what they would say. Get it over with and work through it, because you're just inevitably putting off the lessons that you do need to learn for your art to get better. And I also love the idea that Vivek Shraya is one of my favorite artists. She's Canadian. She's so cool and rad, and she's interdisciplinary. Like, she's a musician and a visual artist, and she wrote a book called How to Fail as a Pop Star. And because for her, because there's also this idea that if you spin it, like, nothing's really a failure if you're learning for it, right? But she explicitly is...
Those things are failures.
That's cool. I'm not failure. You know what I mean? Listen, I'm never going to be a pop star. I've phased out of that age in my life and the capacity for that. I failed at that, and that's okay. And it's important to be able to feel those things and not have them just be like, oh, no, you're not a failure. Yes, I am. And that's okay too.
And I think it's okay to wallow in it a little bit. Feel the failure, understand why something failed, and then move on from it. Don't let it become an albatross around your neck. But certainly, I think you have to take the time to look at it and think, what really went wrong there?
And I really struggle with it. Honestly, I do think it's probably the thing I struggle with most. And the way that you just put that, I refuse to just let things fall, and I'll just keep working on it and keep trying to make it work. And then I haven't been able to suss out what I really want to contribute, because I think that I try too hard not to fail. And so when I was thinking, like, what would I put in this museum? Because I was like, I love the concept. That's so cool. And then I was thinking, and I was like, you just don't let yourself fail. You either just keep it going until you feel you've gotten something out enough of it where I can't call it a failure anymore. And that's bad. So I did come up with one thing, though.
No.
I could put 4 failed driving tests and an expired license.
I have several books that I started writing and spent considerable amounts of time on before realizing that they just weren't going to go anywhere. And, I've written 11 books. I've gotten 11 books published, but there are at least 2 that I spent like a lot of time on, and a lot of time pulling my hair out, trying to figure out what's what, and just had to eventually say, no, these aren't going to work. These are failed ideas. And I'm okay with it, because what that experience taught me was the next time I go into a book project or another project is to really think it out before I go in, before I waste a year, as I did on one of these projects, trying to make it work and knowing that somewhere I'll find the kernel of an idea that's going to turn this into a success. Nope, couldn't find it, and it wasted a year of my time. Now I would rather take a year and plan something out carefully so that I know, oh, this is what will happen on page 1, this is 50, page 75, page 300, whatever. And that I know that there's a beginning, middle, and end to it, and that I will be able to finish it. Let's have a look at something that you were very successful in.
That's a good segue. I like that.
Yeah, see? Which is reality television. Now, reality television has been around really since the beginning of television. There were, in the 40s, there were prank shows. There were shows that had lots of interaction with regular people and the television crews. So I'm thinking of shows, This Is Your Life, I'm thinking of The American Sportsman. I'm thinking of An American Family. When I was a kid, shows like Real People and That's Incredible and Cops were shows that really were unscripted and showed real people doing real things. So that's a reality show and a reality vibe of its own. Candid Camera is another one that was on forever that showed real people doing quote unquote real things. But you were there. You were on Big Brother. Tell me what pushed you to do that, to take that jump.
So, of course, you start with the actual origins of reality TV because often that whole era of reality TV that you just mentioned is totally ignored. And what people really start, even in the academic world, they'll say there were some things before, but they really like to link it up to the writer's strike in the
Right.
2000s, where now you're getting Survivor, American Idol, like Date Joe Blow, Eliminate, Blind Date. And I think that is on it. What happens there because of that connection, those people who often brush out the actual origins of it and want to start there, they then go on to talk about why reality television is not a good art form. And so it makes sense in their kind of argument to start it with the writer's strike and those more kind of salacious reality shows.
Right.
And still, when you talk to people, when I bring up to people that I was on reality TV, I studied reality TV, and now I try to elevate the genre, they will say to me, like, oh, but it's just trash and it's taken over television and it's all, and the shows that they go to think of are the most salacious shows they can think of. But I love how you framed it because An American Family, the one you brought up, that was a PBS show.
Yeah.
And it's like very dorky, wholesome vibes. It's like very documentary vibes, right? And for every salacious reality television show, there's a Great British Bake Off or a
Right.
Finding Your Roots. And so it's really important for me that people expand their definition of reality television to include these things that actually started the genre. It didn't start with, I'm dating 15 chicks at once.
Or Richard Hatch on Survivor. I think that the salacious stuff is the stuff that immediately comes to mind. But if you think about The Osbournes was, in a way, kind of a wholesome show. It was a show about a family that did regular family things. They just happened to have the Prince of Darkness as a father, but that was just part of the vibe and the kind of thing that made that show special because it was unexpected. Even though the things they did were often expected and it was regular things, you did not expect them to do it. They're rich, they're famous. It's Ozzy Osbourne's kids. It's Ozzy Osbourne and Sharon Osbourne. That show, I think, is a great example of something that was just a documentary style show showing people doing things that I'm sure some of those situations, many of them were contrived. They really grabbed people related to it in a way that made that show a huge success. When that was on, that was really at the center of popular culture for at least a short while.
It is such a good example because also it's a reflection of the time. It de-glamorized. That's what I think reality TV is good for. It took the things you assume that's going in Ozzy Osbourne's house, right? Is he eating that? And he's just got all these women and all these drugs. Like you might assume all these things. And he is scooting around in his house in his little slippers going, Sharon, where's my coffee? Or whatever. And it allowed for the Osbourne children to express themselves. And I remember I related to Kelly so much. She was just like cute and she'd poke her dad and stuff. And then now she has a whole career from that too. And what I also think is really special is now we've lost Ozzy Osbourne and the amount of love and outpouring from his fans. And it means so much to him, all that they have got from him. And not only that do they have that art, they feel like they know him. And it's actually quite a beautiful thing to have like archival footage. That's another way I look at reality television. These are time capsules. Even just for that alone, it's like important histories being.
Ozzy's career is unbelievable. But if you wrote a script about a guy who starts off singing about war pigs and ends up being a beloved, goofy character on television, people would say, no, not believable.
And that's another thing that reality TV has is things get to happen in reality television that you could never write because people would say no one would believe that. And let me tell you, I've seen enough reality television to know for a fact that it is true. And in that sense, it is really real. So that is why I decided to go on reality television. Like, I did see a power in the genre that way. And I thought, I have things to say, and I'm going to say them.
And how did it happen?
So I was living in Calgary at the time, and I was working a serving job. And I told everybody, I'm moving to Toronto. I'm going to be on Big Brother Canada. And they obviously laughed because they were like, you can't just do that. And I was like, I am going to do it. And so I moved to Toronto. I got a job at a weed lounge at Yonge and Bloor.
So you came here with the express idea of being on reality television?
Yeah.
Wow.
Even though, and at that time, literally probably like our auditions were at the Toronto Metro Convention Center, and my number was like 700 or something like that. And there was at least that many people behind me. So we're talking like a lot of people have to audition. And for some reason, I was just delusionally confident that I knew TV well enough and that I loved TV well enough. And I had seen enough of these shows to know what they want and also know that I would be different. And I auditioned. There was 10 of us at a table, and they said, I'm going to go down the row and tell me all why you want to be on the show. That's it. You have 5 seconds. And so we all did our thing. And I remember turning around and we were like all in a line walking out. I was like, that's not going to do it. So I ran back.
Really?
And I said, you got to put me on, man. And he said, had I not done that, I wouldn't have got the second audition. So I get the second audition, and I made the point, like, I want to be myself, but I'm a performance artist. I'm a theater kid, so I can have fun with this. So instead of, there's this idea that they're going to give you an edit that makes you look like a character that you're not, right? But if you go in knowing you can give them a character, it's less work for them. You know what I mean? So I had things to say, and I had fun with them in terms of, what do you think about this person? I know that they want like a little jokey joke, but I know I'm not a cruel person. So I found my niche. And I know, hey, I'm a pothead. I talk about smoking weed on the show. And so I don't mind that they're going to tease me about being forgetful or this and that. And instead of being defensive about all those things, I leaned fully into them. And I was just like, you know what? I am those things. I'm also smart. And if someone wants to think that because I'm this one thing, I'm not this other thing, that's on them. It has nothing to do with me. So I had fun with it. And I was able to like talk about a not failure. It's crazy because not only was I able to talk about feminism and talk about queerness and things that were important to me and be funny and goofy. I had a stand-up moment. We did like pies in the face shit, goofy shit. I won $100,000. So then I came out and I was able to be and live and do and buy a house and
buy that gold lame suit you've always wanted.
That's exactly right. But through my research, so then I went to my master's, right? And I wanted to be like, is there research that, backs or did any other people say, I'm going to do this as a legitimate way into the industry?
Right.
And most of the research is really, it suggests that people who cast on reality shows are like desperate for fame, but there's no primary evidence. There's no primary data to suggest that. And so what I do now is I interview reality TV people on my YouTube series Facing Reality, and I ask them, and generally listen, I'm not afraid to say I'm a little bit of an attention seeker, that's for sure. But also, I think mostly what I found is that people are artists looking to get into a genre. And so some of these shows that are doing really well, Canada's Drag Race, Project Runway Canada this year was incredible. And the winner, Leland Mitchell, is really well known in the Toronto community and the design space. And so these are like massively talented people looking for outlets. And we luck out because we get to watch it and grow from that too. But
what I like about reality television, and I don't watch a large cross section of it. I like cooking shows, and I liked a show that was about blowing glass,
Oh, what's
which
that one
was,
called?
I can't remember now, but it was
I
on
love one.
Netflix. And what I liked about a lot of the cooking shows that I watched, the blowing glass and a few others, is that they weren't like Survivor, where they were trying to outplay and betray the other players. They're just doing what they do, doing it as well as they can, and hope that their talent is enough for them to win. And that's what I like. I find there's enough stress. There's enough terrible stuff happening in the world. I don't need to go and see people say, I didn't come here to make friends, so I'm going to do whatever it takes to win. All that, that stuff really puts me off. I don't want to see that. What I want to see are people that can make a really beautiful glass vase and do it under pressure and make something that helps them compete on this particular show. I like that. And Blown Away. Was it
Yeah.
called Blown Away?
It was called Blown Away.
Blown Away.
Yeah. And it was filmed in Hamilton. Again,
Yeah.
we are so lucky to have some of the best reality TV producers. And just beyond that, like tradespeople, camera people, sound people, a lot of them work on our reality TV shows. And so the mastery is there, for sure.
But what I guess the point, though, is that a very long time ago, in my first radio job ever, I thought that I was doing a great job, and I would play a Rolling Stones record or whatever, and I'd come back and I'd be like, well, the Rolling Stones have 10 number one hits, and blah, and I just read off a bunch of data, and then here's whatever, the Beatles, the next one, whatever. And the program director called me into his office and said, listen, you've got the voice for this. You obviously love the music. But here's the thing. Nobody cares about all that stuff. They can find out that stuff elsewhere. People want to hear about people, is what he said to me.
Right.
And that has always stayed with me. So the through line through all the work that I've done, through whatever books it might be, or the millions of movie reviews and the whatever podcasts and television shows, has always been, the focus is always people. I'm interested in people. And when I interview people for my radio show, we'll talk about their project. Obviously, it's something that they're interested in, but I want to find out why they made it, not so much what they plan on doing with it. I want to find out about the people.
That's
and
exactly it.
that, to me, is the beauty of reality television. You can learn about people. You can see people that do something that is different than you do, or that have a different way of approaching something. And in some ways, these shows are like little machines for empathy. You take a different kind of life, or a different life experience, or something set in a place that you are unfamiliar with, and you learn about it. And it makes you understand people and places and things a whole lot more than maybe it did before. And I think that is what this does really well, what reality television does really well, when it's really good.
Absolutely. And for me, some of those things look a little messy sometimes, and they're emotionally charged, and sometimes there's less grace in elements of that. But I think that's important too, because part of the origins of reality television, to me and to some scholars too, come from the kind of like Ricky Lake era talk shows in which we're seeing people who don't get representation online. And so maybe there is like a little bit of it can feel mocking. Like in the moment we all thought it was, but then like years later you look back and some of the most dynamic, progressive, radical conversations that people were having in the 90s were on Phil Donahue, Ricky Lake. Like the conversation might be like, is it a man or is it a woman? And then they have women, all these gorgeous women, walk the runway, and the audience is, you're a man, no, that's a man, that's a woman. And then at the end, they would all come out, and the whole point, so again, it seems very salacious, right? But at the end, the whole point, like that was trans representation at the time that we did not have at all. And looking back, it actually was like like trying to challenge people's mind around gender. And so I think reality TV is so good at this that I actually did some research because I always thought it really feels Shakespearean to me. I thought reality TV is so drama, and I always thought people talk shit about Shakespeare during his time, right? So maybe there's some connection here.
It was popular culture. Shakespeare, now we think of it as high culture and high art. It was popular culture. It was for the people. And popular culture often gets poo-pooed a little bit in its lifespan. And it's not until later, when it goes on to become something that lasts, that we see the real value in it.
That's exactly it. I think it's too close. Like Dostoevsky and people who hated Shakespeare confronted him that it was too real, too much, they would say. It's too much going on. And it's like more than one act, and there's more than one character. And also that it didn't morally show people in the ways that they should be. Is that it reflected the ways that they are instead of the ways that they should be. And I think a lot of the critique about reality TV has to come with that. Not all art has to be didactic in that way and telling people what to do. Sometimes the best art is just a reflection up to a community. Like, for instance, Canada Shore is coming out, right? Jersey Shore is one of the more debaucherous reality shows. And listen, I'm someone who, I'm not going to just, everything's great. Jersey Shore had some really terrible behavior on it, right?
Yeah.
The men were straight up sexually assaulting women in the club, looking for the women who were the drunkest, talking about women in very misogynistic ways. And yet, does that contribute to that culture, or does that critique that culture? Or are both things going on? And then now, all these years later, we have Canada Shore, and I actually got to interview the girls, and they were like, this is a woman's house. Like, we saw that original show, and it's going to be totally different. And so maybe without the one, we don't have the other.
I met Snooki years ago.
Tell me everything.
I will tell you that in a non-smoking environment, she insisted on smoking, that she liked to have a drink, and that she was really sweet. There was something about her that was lovely, and she wasn't performing. It wasn't performative in this situation in which I met her. And she was nice. You could see why people were interested in what was going on in her life, because while her onstage and on-screen persona was outrageous and you never knew what you were going to get, when she wasn't doing that, she was nice. And I think people will see that. I wish I had salacious things to tell you, but I really don't.
But that's probably the most salacious thing of all for Snooki. You know what I mean? She's actually pretty chill and sweet. That's what people would be most shocked to hear.
Now, why do you think that the Traitors Canada works so well? It's a huge hit. And the summary that I'm reading here, it's a masterclass in paranoia filled in a Quebec manner.
That's exactly it. First of all, filmed in the Quebec manner, it looks gorgeous. Yeah. So I think that's one thing that our Canadian reality TVs has done well, just because of the nature of the high level of production. So Traitors is genius because all reality TV shows where you're voting people out are essentially the same game, right? And essentially it's really hard to capture because it's vibes and people like who they like and they're going to vote off people regardless, right? So that's how Big Brother was. And Big Brother becomes really emotional and hard because you're there for 70 days. Traitors is like 2 weeks.
Right.
So I think the reason Traitors is fun is because there's like a theme, and that's how you're voting people out. Because you're trying to get out the traitors, as opposed to just voting out people who like aren't in your little group. So because of that, it allows the players to play in a more fun way too. The theme, the shortness of it, it helps alleviate this idea that you're generally just like looking at a group of 16 people and saying, we don't like you, and we don't like you. And then you're the next one who's going to go. You know what I mean? It adds a levity because it's like, you're a traitor.
Right.
And I'm going to stab you. You know what I mean?
So there was a while that it seemed like there was a new reality show on every channel almost every day. That seems to have passed a little bit, although American Idol is coming back. But I had to wonder, before I started looking up some numbers here, are people still really watching in huge numbers? And it turns out they are. The appetite is not shrinking, it is exploding on streaming.
Yeah, 85% of Canadian streamers engage with reality-heavy platforms. Love Island USA recently hit 18 billion minutes viewed, which is just... And Traitors phenomenon. So
Yeah.
some reports say 15 million people tuned in for the Celebrity Traitors finale. That's a UK show. And then the US version, 638 million minutes for season 4. I guess we're counting by minutes now.
Streamers count by minutes. I don't know if people watch the entire show really often, and so they go by minute rather than by unit.
And I think the success of the Traitors too is very much that people talk about it.
Yeah.
And that I also think I think there is a little bit of a renaissance reality TV. Like we can see the Traitors, Survivor's back. It's bringing back people from decades ago, including Mike White, who is the writer of White Lotus. So it's very cool stuff.
And Traitors in Canada, it's a dual thing. So Canada is the only franchise to film in English and in French versions simultaneously with the same host, who is Karen Vanessa. And the winners in season 1, there was a magician. Season 2 by Big Brother royalty Nada Kalantar. And it pulls in 1.2 million weekly viewers on CTV, and it's been renewed through season 4. So I guess there is a real appetite out there for this stuff.
Yeah, and so Netta was on Big Brother Canada, and this season Hollywood Jade from Canada's Drag Race and Dom from Love Island were both on N1. So yes, that's another reason why these reality shows work so well. And in Canada, where we don't really have this star-making machine, it is one of the only things that can give someone a foot in the door. And if they do well, they get rewarded for that, which I think is really exciting. And someone like Hollywood Jade is an incredibly talented person. He choreographs for Canada's Drag Race, and he just, like many of us, I'll throw myself in there, some of us are like, when you get together with a group of reality TV people, let me just say, it's loud. It's a lot. Some of us are just made for it, and it works out. And I feel like Traitors has done a really good job at finding us people to fall in love with and then keep the franchise going that way.
And let's talk a little bit about why we watch. Now, one of the feelings about this is that we watch because sometimes if we see trashy behavior, or in the case, I always think of Richard Hatch and how manipulative he was on that first season of Survivor, which I was glued to. I used to go to a Survivor party every Thursday night, and we'd watch the show, and then we'd talk, and we'd tape it and watch bits of it over and over again. But Richard Hatch made an impression on me because he just seemed like not a great guy who was that, I'm not here to make friends, I'm here to win, that sort of thing that I don't like. But a lot of people look at that kind of trashy and quote unquote behavior because it makes us feel better about ourselves. Do you think that's part of it?
I used to think that. But now I think the housewives too. I used to think, oh, people like to see fighting. I think what people actually really like is when they fight and then they have to sit in the reunions and then they have to atone for the fighting.
Right.
I think, and this is me personally, I actually like to see the getting through the things. Yeah. And when people fight, it's not that it necessarily makes me feel better about myself. Hey, is there anything wrong with that? Maybe it's a bit of that too. Not even just about myself. The world I came from a house that wasn't a quiet house. Let's just say that. There's things about it that do make me feel, even if we're talking the most salacious, we're thinking back in the Jersey Shore days, and it's fighting and it's hooking up and it's crossing the line. I do think it's important for people to know that they can make mistakes. And then the reason why we want continued is because I like to see the bigger side of it. I hope people like to see growth. Even if that growth is short-lived and cyclical, which most of the Housewives stuff is, I actually think, I actually don't think that there is that much difference between a film or a scripted show and a reality TV show in terms of why we watch. I
Right.
think
In terms of, because we're looking for characters and we're looking for situations where
tension,
conflict.
stakes,
Yeah.
conflict, but then also a resolution of those things as well. And my thing is, what I hope people take from the work I do with reality television is, to me, it doesn't seem fair that because, like, we don't throw film away when one battle after another is trash. Sorry. Or, like, I have my opinions on films, but of course I would never say about that all films are bad then, right?
Right.
But there's this connection between, like I said, I think it comes to do with how things are framed around the writer's strike. And yes, there needs to be a union for reality TV people. And yes, there are exploitive practices that take place for sure. And so I don't want to say the genre is perfect or anything. You get paid to be on, from what I know, you get paid to be on reality television, but they're not union rates. Like, you're not going to be getting paid 24 hours a day.
Yeah, this
7
is my
days a week.
question. Like, how, you said you were on Big Brother for 70 days. Now, you happen to take home the big cash, but how do you pay your rent?
So I assume every year is different. And for my year, I was paid $70 a day.
Like a per diem almost.
Per diem, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's not, and I think in the States, they have it where it ramps up a bit the longer you stay. But from what I knew in Canada, and I think maybe they give people slightly different, like we had doctors and shit like that. And I was like, they ask you questions like, how long would you need to take away from work? How long would you, what is the process like going to be for you? And I was like, I work a minimum wage job and you can literally pull me out in the middle of the day and I'll say, fuck you assholes. I'm never coming back. So they were.
I'm sure your employers were gratified.
Yeah, I was on the lower end of the stipend, I assume, but it was $70 a day, which was enough for me to pay my bills. And you give someone like power of attorney, essentially. So my partner got that money and then he paid my bills for that. So it's not bad, but it's definitely not. What's interesting is I have done the math, and $100,000 is roughly what you would get paid if you got the ACTRA rate, no overtime. Right. So it essentially, so those type of things are not great and could do with a tweaking, because essentially you're paying people at a lower rate and then one of you wins the proper union rate.
And the rest of you go home with nothing. Ha ha ha.
But well, I think, though, these things have, I played a decade ago as well. So I do think things are getting better and the conversations are getting better. And there's better representation on reality television than there's ever been in terms of racial diversity and gender diversity. And I was one of the first queer people, I might be the first queer woman to have ever won. I'm the only woman who won sitting next to a man. And from my season on, it just gets more impressive in terms of the representation and the way, and the people who win, they go on to do great things as well.
Let's have a look at some other things, some other ideas for shows, and we'll try and decide whether or not these are real or whether they're not. We should have very soon, because our producer, Brittlestar, didn't want us to see these questions, these ideas. So he's going to feed them to us, and we're going to decide whether or not this is a real show, whether it has been a show, or whether it is just a complete fake. So here's the pitch. Labor of Love. A woman dates 15 men, but instead of looking for a husband, she is specifically looking for a father for her child. They go through parenting challenges like changing diapers and assembling cribs. Is that real, or is that a figment of Brittlestar's imagination?
If it's not real, it needs to be. It's real. I'm saying real.
And the answer is real. It aired on Fox in 2020. It feels foxy. Yeah, pandemic-y and foxy. All right, let's see what the next one is.
Okay, here's my pitch.
Okay.
Love at First Scent. Contestants are blindfolded and have to choose their soulmate based entirely on smelling their dirty t-shirts.
Yeah, there are a couple of shows that have blindfolded contestants who are trying to find a love match, and they go by the sound of the person's voice or whatever it might be. I don't think that the smelly t-shirt angle is true, although it probably really is a show, but for the love of God, I hope that it's not.
I just have, what's that movie? Scent of a Woman? Great
Yeah.
ass. He
And
would
so was
love
it
that.
real or no?
The answer, it is real. It was a short-lived experimental show in the UK. Short-lived.
Yeah, I get that it's short-lived.
I'm
Okay.
not even grossed out by that, but what can you tell by a person's scent?
I don't know. I don't know. Because is the scent there from one wearing, which might suggest that they're a stinky person? Or is it something that you have to wear the shirt for a week and then give it to them? I don't
And
know.
a stinky person means hard work. Like, how can I
It's
tell
true.
if someone's a Republican or a conservative based on their smell? That's what I need to know
There you
if
go.
I'm going to play this game.
All right, this is your pitch. The X-Files. Couples who have recently broken up are moved into a house where they have to watch live footage of their ex dating someone new in the room next door.
Okay, this is good. It sounds a little bit like Love Ultimatum. So I'm going to say, because the other ones were real, I'm going to say false. Because this is pretty Love Ultimatum.
This one is fake. It is not real. But I love how you pull out what sounds to me like fairly obscure show name. Love. Oh, it sounds like Love Ultimatum. I've
Yeah.
never even heard of this.
I got them all, Richard.
Okay.
Okay. The Cupcake Girls, a reality show following two best friends from Vancouver who tried to build a cupcake empire while dealing with frosting-based drama.
I'm going to say that this is true. This is the kind of reality show that would appeal to me. People who are trying to do something, build a business, and cupcakes, very popular in Vancouver. I don't know if that's true, but that's what I'm going to say, yes.
It is real, and it aired on the W Network and Oprah's Own. See, there's lots of great cutesy reality shows. I love this. And it reminds me of old school Real World, which I can't believe we didn't bring up during our
Yeah,
reality
that was
TV
the one that really
origin.
kicked things off in terms of bringing reality shows back, wasn't it? Survivor was the one for me, but the Real World was one. It was on MTV.
Yeah.
It was young people, so
And
it had
probably
a huge young
decade
audience.
before Survivor airs,
Yeah.
too. And oh my God, Pedro, who had HIV/AIDS, and then he passes away, and he's like a huge activist, and then he passes away from that years later. This is the type of stuff that gets me really mad when people just dismiss the whole genre, because I'm just like, that is powerful and that is real. Like, for people to be like, reality TV isn't real. Okay, tell that to Pedro. Okay, tell that to the Real World. And actually,
How about to Richard Hatch, who ended up in jail?
Exactly. Yeah, I had to go on my little rant, but the Real World's a good one too.
Okay, here's the last pitch for you. I want to marry Harry. 12 American women are flown to a castle in England to compete for the heart of Prince Harry, except it's just a random redhead who looks slightly like him.
Yeah, no, this is true. I know this is true.
And wow, it was a massive disaster on Fox in 2014.
Hey, those women get whatever is coming to them. I'm sorry. If you sign up to marry Harry, make all the mocking jokes you want. They deserve it.
I'm going to go look up the Cupcake Girls on YouTube. I'm sure it's probably sitting there somewhere, and have a look. It was great to see you this week.
It was great to see you and do a little reality TV pulling.
A
there.
reality check, so to speak.
That's right.
Good to see you. Thanks, everybody, for watching. You can watch the podcast on Substack TV as well as YouTube and your favorite podcast platform.
That's right. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.